morning, Professor Rodrigo. Thank you for participating in this mock session of the Jean Monnet Network on EU-China relations, and specifically about your work on European Union-China relations and the Belt and Road Initiative. First of all, we would like to ask you, what are the Chinese motivations for the Belt and Road Initiative?
Thank you so much, Eva. First of all, I would say that the main proposal, the main aim of this initiative is to ensure a peaceful coexistence in this area, in the area of Central Asia, in the area of the Chinese space, and also connected with the European coexistence in some aspects. In this sense, we could say that there's another motivation regarding the national sovereignty and the territorial integrity. I mean, it's to ensure these two principles of the international law, in which the European Union and China are very focused on, because they are two principles achieving by these two parts. For the part of the European Union, we are very motivated in ensuring these principles. For example, in the case of Ukraine, and in the case of China, it is the same with the case of the territorial integrity of not only of the mainland China, but also in the other territories, aiming or willing by the part of the Beijing government to become part of the Chinese Republic. Also, we have the motivation of achieving a high goal relating to the connectivity and the infrastructure networks between Asia and in particular China with the surrounding countries, and also with Europe. For example, we have the Daegu-Madrid train line. So in this sense, the Chinese part and the European part are very motivated in ensuring this connection between the two sides of the world by means of economic and trade objectives. Also, China has the motivation of ensuring further economic integration in the region of Asia, in particular in China, because we have the idea that China is a developing country. Of course it is, but not as a whole. For example, there are some regions, some territories, some provinces in China that are not as developed as, for example, Beijing, Shanghai, and the main cities of the coast. So these are a fourth motivation by the part of the Chinese government to ensure a higher development, of course, in the surrounding area of the country, but also within the country in those parts of the inland of China. From this internal perspective, it is also the goal to ensure sustainability in growth, which leads to a further legitimacy by the part of the government, of the communist government, and in this objective of achieving a higher degree of equilibrium between different parts of the country is connected with the objective or the sub-objective of reducing inequalities among these regions in social, economic, and developing issues. Through this way, the country aims to achieve and promote the domestic consumption. The Chinese economy is focused on the external dimension of the economy, but Beijing knows that the higher degrees of growth could be only achieved if the internal consumption and the internal demand is also stimulated and promoted. And finally, the side of the investment. China is very compromised with the objective of boosting the investments not only inside China, but also in the surrounding area of the country, as well as in other countries joining the BRI initiative in different parts of Asia and other regions of the world.
Can you explain to us the general features of the European Union and China relations?
Yeah, the main points here is that we have to clarify different points because there are some common aspects, but on the other hand, we have differences between Europe and China. Beginning by this side, by the differences, for example, we should mention that in the case of the European Union is governed by a democratic system, by a democratic functioning. The European Union promotes these values of democracy around the world and apply these same objectives, these same rules inside the European Union, not only in the member states, but also in the European sphere. We are governed also, and we insist on the idea of respecting fundamental rights as the supreme values of our legal order. And this is connected with the existence of citizens' freedoms, for example, press, speech, vote. All these connections relating with the liberal assumption of democracy, and the democratic values. Also, we have a full independent legal system. The judiciary is independent from the other two powers of the state. Of course, the European Union is not a state, but in this sense, we can assume that the European Union works as a state, so with this division of powers. So the judiciary is independent and the economy is a full market economy. So in this sense, we give freedom for enterprises, for the single initiative to continue making the economy growing. And it is connected with the last part of this European way of life. This European perspective is the social protection of workers, but also social protection of citizens and everyone who is inside the European Union. On the other hand, China is not as the European Union appears in these aspects, because, for example, China is governed by a single party system. The Communist Party is the only party with powers in the political system of the Chinese Republic. There a lack of fundamental right protection in some aspects, and this makes the difference with the European Union. In some aspects, there is no transparency, reliability, and certainty from the legal perspectives, because in the promotion of economy, it is not as stronger as it could be in our system in Europe. It is true that China has advanced and has been moving forward to the economic freedom, and in particular after joining the World Trade Organization, but there are so many aspects that should be still open in some spheres of the economy. It is a market-oriented economy, but not a free market economy. And the protection of the society and the workers are more dominated by a kind of dirigism by the part of the power. So these are the difference, but on the other part, we can find some similarities, some common aspects, in particular in the international perspective. For example, China and the European Union are focusing in the last decades on the multipolarism, in the existence of different centers of power, for example, not a unipolar system, but in something different from this point of view. Europe and China could collaborate and could work together in different aspects, and it could be positive for the world. For example, here I would like to mention the environment and the ecological transition, in the sense fixed by or established by the European Green Deal, with this noble objective of ensuring the climate neutrality for 2050. China has adopted a similar compromise with this noble objective, as I said, but it has postponed this neutrality 10 years more than Europe, but the objective is to achieve that in 2060. So, of course, there are differences. that dominate the context of our mutual relations, but there are many other aspects in which China and the European Union could collaborate, could work together, and I find that very positive for the international society and the world in this first decades of the 21st century.
Finally, what do you think that are the future perspectives in the European Union and China relations?
In the economy between China and the European Union, as I said before, there are many differences in the sense that the European Union is governed and we apply a competition policy, the rules of a free market economy, and China is trying to do that, in particular after its accession to the World Trade Organization, but some points should be still clarified. And in this sense, I would like to mention I find it's the main goal, the achievement of a level playing field for the European enterprises, the European companies operating in China. The Chinese enterprises benefit from different points as the other in Europe. I mean, there is no differences between the European or the Chinese, for example, companies applying within the European Union. But on the other side, the European companies suffer from some differences between the treatment of the internal Chinese companies and the foreign companies, and in this sense it should be clarified, and the main goal from the part of the European Commission is trying to ensure a level playing field for our companies in China. There's another point, and here I like to mention the state-owned enterprises. This is something that is not applying in the European Union because the monopols are not very accepted for the competition policy, the competition law. And in this sense, here there another lack of common and mutual position. So there's the second point that should be improved by the part of the Chinese government vis-a-vis the European companies. Another fact, the third point that I would like to mention is that according to the OECD index in regulatory restrictiveness, China appears as the 65th most restrictive economy for foreign investments. And on the other hand, Europe is one of the most comfortable economies for receiving investments. So here we have another disequilibrium between the two sides, and this point should be clarified too. Some lacks of transparency by the part of the Chinese counterpart is still another part of this problematic. And finally, I find that the achievement of a comprehensive agreement on investment, ensuring an improving market access and enhancing the future investment protection for our companies is another part of the not problems, but this ideal situation to be achieved in the future in the upcoming years. From the part of Europe and from the part of the Chinese government is another question to be solved in our mutual relations. And the last part is how Europe is put in practice the screening mechanism for foreign investments, and how it could be impact in our economies, in our member states, because after the Euro crisis 10 years ago, some countries were very open to receive Chinese investment, and it could be influenced and could create different geostrategic problems from the part of the common vision of a single Europe, and how Europe could deal with the Chinese interferences in some economic parts from and especially in those countries willing to join the European Union in the incoming years, as for example Montenegro did with the Barbol-Jare question regarding the Chinese investment, and all these problematics, all the situation that I just mentioned should conditionate, are called to conditionate the Euro-Chinese relations in the incoming years. But I'm very confident in the fact that we are called to collaborate, and that we could surmount and we could achieve a common benefit for every part of the two counterparts.
Well, Professor Rodrigo, thank you for your insightful comments, and thank you again for participating in this project about EU-China relations.
Thank you, Eva.